Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. Today is episode number 4 of our 10-part series looking at the 10 major factions within Mythic Legions and ranking each character within the faction. Today we're going to be looking at the Circle of Poxxus. So this is one of the newer waves that just got into people's hands, and this is a pretty no-miss wave for me. Some of these figures are pretty amazing, so this made for a pretty challenging ranking list. And remember, within this list is Plogius the Horse, and that is part of our giveaway sponsored by Empire Toy Shop. And in order to enter to win Plogius, all you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the Strong Collectors and then leave a comment saying who your favorite in the faction is. So this is for the first 5 episodes, the bad guy episodes, and you can go back and leave a comment on any one of those videos for the corresponding faction. So last we talked about Alithia's Brood. You can go back, watch that episode, and then leave a comment saying who your favorite in that faction is. And you can do that for each of the 5 bad guy factions for a total of 5 entries. You can leave other comments as well. Feel free to blow the comments up. That's fine. But you're only going to get 1 entry per video for a total of 5. So thank you to Empire Toy Shop for providing us with the giveaway for these episodes. You can go check them out on their website, empiretoyshop.com. They have a wide variety of Mythic Legions, as well as other action figures, G.I. Joes, Marvel Legends, Mezcos, things like that. So please consider them for any of your future action figure needs. And you can head over to their Instagram, tell them thank you for providing us this horse for the giveaway. Like with all other episodes in this series, these are my opinions. They don't necessarily mean I'm totally right. For me, it works. You might have a different ranking for these. That's totally okay. You can leave comments saying that you think I'm wrong. You could also leave some nice comments saying that you agree with some of my picks. That would be nice. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the faction. Starting off, in 14th place, we have Molina, I think is how you say it. That seems a little too Mortal Kombat, but that looks like how you say it. This is a Motu tribute for Evelyn. I like the hair or whatever the plume is coming out of the helmet. The yellow skin of the vampire, I don't know about for sure for me. That's where I wish maybe there was a little bit more armor to it, but I know that that kind of takes away from what it's trying to be with the tribute. For me, it's a cool magic wielder. Something has to be at the bottom of the list, though, and as a Motu tribute, that's where I think she kind of falls down the list a little bit. Not my least favorite Motu tribute, though. Just as far as this faction goes, like I said, this is a lot of some amazing figures. So coming in at 13th place is Plogius, which I think says a lot about this faction, that a horse this cool ranks in 13th place. It means we've got 12 other figures that I think are even cooler. Now, as far as horses go, this guy just makes me sick. And it's because of those details. And this is not a horse that I think you would see anywhere else. The head sculpt on this guy, to me, is just crazy. Having that almost seaweed type of mane. And then you've got those like sickly dead eyes with the rotting face and the rotting leg even. The detail of the horse is really cool. But almost even more than that, I like this armor. This one seems like the most ready to go into battle. It seems like Poxxus maybe cares a little bit more about his horse than some of the other 4 horsemen, although I don't know how much Necronominus needs to care about his dead skeleton horse. It looks like he's pretty well protected from arrows and things like that. So, good on Poxxus for protecting his horse. Cool horse. Just I don't have a lot of space to display him with. So for me, it just doesn't quite rank at the top, but I think especially this head sculpt has got to be one of the best horse head sculpts that they've ever done. Next up, we've got Malachi Cinderhorn. And this one is cool because it's the first, at least in this series, that we're seeing the Shadow Elves. And I think this is a cool idea. I think that the color of the armor really matches the skin of the Shadow Elves. I like that they have that like snow white type hair. He's got the soft goods. It's a little bit of an older figure, so that's why he ranks a little bit lower for me. I think if he'd come out in today's day and age, this would be maybe one of the best figures ever. So I would be curious to see if they ever do a version 2 of this guy, because I think that would blow me away. So here's my fingers crossed for a version 2 of Malachi Cinderhorn. Next, we've got just the regular Shadow Elf. Now this one ranks a little bit higher than Malachi Cinderhorn for me, because for one, I'm a sucker for that type of axe, and also this style of shield, but with the blues on there, that shield just looks really cool to me. He gets the bump a little bit more for his accessories, but I think even still being that Shadow Elf with the style of armor that he has, I don't see myself like building out an army of these guys, but I do think it would be cool to have a couple of these within the faction as sort of your guards to the castle or something like that. Just making it into the top 10 is Poxxus himself, so the leader of the faction. Now this one comes very heavily detailed. Again, the accessories that come with him, I think are some of my favorite, maybe not my favorite to like display with, but just my favorite conceptually. I think it's so cool that he's got his bow and arrows, the Plague Sayer, and the arrows aren't just your typical, things you would pull out of a quiver. He's like shooting down the plague. That for me bumps this guy up just alone. The fact that he comes with wings, the crown made out of like little beetle legs, the beard on the like rotting face, the shoulder pauldrons, the armor, with all that, even still being at 10th place, I keep saying it, but this faction is just, there's not really any misses. You can't go wrong with any of these figures. And Poxxus is definitely a really cool figure. In 9th place is Zarya. This one I'm going to say is probably just because the demons are my favorite race within Mythos. You could argue with me that it's not as good a figure as especially Poxxus, but for me, I think it's because I don't own this figure and I want to own her. I like the shoulder tattoos. Again, like I said, the demons are my favorite race, so I've got a lot of like customs and pop and swapped demons that I would like to add her to the ranks of that. This one, I'll let you argue with me. Maybe she's not as deserving of 9th place, and I might accept that criticism, but remember, this is my list and I make the rules here. Next up we have Azar, and again, I said I like my demons. This one I think is super unique. I never would have thought to make a yellow demon. The blue armor with him goes really well. I really like the tattoos on this guy. I wish I could do something similar with some of my customs. I just don't think I've got quite that level of paint skill. His weapons, to me, are surprisingly cool. They're just plain black all the way through, but somehow it just works that it seems like that's exactly the kind of weapon he should have. Again, I love my demons, probably biased for that reason, but I think he's awesome. In 7th place, we have Thrace Wraithhaler. Now, again, I think this one is a little bit less arguable that she deserves to be in the top 10. I think some people may rank her higher. This one is cool because you don't have a lot of female figures in Mythos, but when they put her out, I think they did an amazing job with the soft goods. And even though she doesn't come like with tons of colors like I usually like, her armor and gear is mostly black with the purple cape. I think it works so well. And I really like the head sculpt on this one. Both of them are really cool, even though there's not a ton of differences in my mind. They're subtle enough that I think it's worth getting both. The effects in this picture alone, I think, are really cool. I like seeing the pictures in the Cabal of Thrace kind of pulling the spirit out of soldiers and using the Hagnon figures. I think that's a really cool idea. And I think that this also gets points in my mind because it looks similar to the main character in the Throne of Glass series, at least from the cover art of those books. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, if there was any inspiration drawn from those covers, but I think that looks pretty cool, which for me, I think I'm going to have her posed more as a good guy, a little bit more of a silent assassin, sort of like that main character from the books. I know that's not necessarily canon to Legions, but that's the best thing about Legions is you can make up your own stories and make your own unique characters with different pop and swaps. Just missing out on the top 5. In 6th place, we have the Shadow Elf Ranger. Now, out of all of the Shadow Elves, this one is my favorite. I think the colors on this guy pop a little bit more than the others, and I like the hooded, cloaked look. Definitely seems, like I said with Thrace, kind of that more silent assassin. You don't see them coming. They're hiding in the shadows. The bow and arrow, the sword, I think it comes with good weapons, and really it's the colors for this one that just make me like this one more than the other Shadow Elves that we've seen previously on the list. Making it into the top 5 is Arac. This one, I think, just screams evil wizard to me. Maybe it's because I just finished up reading the Crystar comic books, but this seems like he could be an OG-ode for your Marvel Legends even. The effects with him, I think, are really cool, especially the staff. It's kind of got those like insect beetle type legs at the top of it, which is similar to Poxxus's crown. And then the way they have the gem placed in here, it really does make it look like it's floating within those legs. Like it's attached in there, but it just seems like it's floating in midair. They did a really good job on that. Even his little trinkets to go on his belt, the little potions, the skull, all those things are such cool touches that really they didn't need to put in there, but it just shows that Four Horsemen Studios goes above and beyond with all of their figures to pack in as much value as they possibly can for their fans. In fourth place, we have Kazir, and this one, I feel like I've said this before on a different character, but this has got to be the coolest sword in all of Mythic Legions. It's like a dragon's head breathing fire down the blade. I don't know how they're ever going to top that. I think that's awesome. The soft goods on him, I think, work really well, and I think this head sculpt alone might be one of my favorites in Mythic Legions, with the beard, the eyes, the eyebrows, the sculpted details on the head, the ponytail, the earrings even being in there. This figure is much cooler than I thought it was when I just first glanced at it, because originally I thought like, oh, just a plain blue figure, but no, there's a lot of different like washes on there to kind of bring out some of those details. And this guy, I think, is a very good value for what you're getting. Coming in at third place, I have Toan. This one is cool to me because for some reason I've always liked some of those mythic creatures, and the Minotaurs were one of those that I liked reading those stories in school. So getting an action figure of a Minotaur was really cool to me. This was the first Minotaur that I had ever gotten, and I like kind of the black parts for pop and swaps because I've used those for, again, my custom demons just as a standalone figure straight out of the box. This guy is excellent. I really like the blue armor on him, but I've also done pop and swaps where I've used the purple armor from Zarya, and I think that makes Toan look a little bit more evil. I think this blue armor, you could use him as a good guy, bad guy. I think the purple armor really solidifies him as a villain. Coming in at number 2, again, another demon. This is the one that really got me hooked onto the demon race in Mythos. The tattoos on him are excellent, and I think surprisingly, he's really good for pop and swaps. I like putting the armor from Baron Volliger onto him, giving him more of that like Black Knight type of armor. I think it makes him look a lot more powerful, and I have him as more of my leader of the demons. Really glad that I was able to pick him up early in my Mythic Legion collecting because I've had a lot of fun building out my army of demons to go with him. And coming in at first place, probably not much of a surprise to many, is Azahazar. So this is your combination of Azar and Zazar. One of the very first Mythic Legions that I had ever seen that really got me looking at the line. So I saw Azahazar and Arac, and I was like, whoa, what is this line? Because these figures look amazing. And getting them in hand, I was not wrong. I think his staff is really cool. I like that it's got the yellow and the blue because it's that mix of those two demons, which makes sense. I was saying it's a little bit odd to have a yellow demon. Makes sense when you're trying to mix yellow and blue to make green. I like the bigger figures, so that's why he's at the top of my list. I think the belt with kind of that faction belt buckle type of look is a really cool idea. I like the green flames. I'm almost sure that people are going to argue that he shouldn't be the number 1 spot, but for me, this is what got me into Mythic Legions, and without him, I may not be collecting Mythic Legions at all. So I think that's where he's got a little bit of a soft spot in my heart. And then here's my breakdown of kind of how I organized my thoughts. If you wanted to do a breakdown like this with the tiered list, I'll leave a link in the description. And remember, the bottom row doesn't mean bad figures. It just means figures that maybe I'm trying to track down a little bit less or I don't have the room for right now. And again, this really is a no-miss wave. I think if you got any of these figures, you'd be super happy. And I think the members in this faction are a lot better than other figures you might find at your big box retailers. So you're really not going to go wrong with anyone in this faction. Make sure you enter the giveaway, and I'll see you in the next one.